Hey everybody, Paul Fontaine here with the Joy of Wrestling, and my special guest, Draven. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
been a long time, man.
it's been a while. So I got to tell you something. I'm going to admit this to everybody. So Garrett told me that you had caught the show and you thought it was a cool idea. And for those that have never seen it, basically it's what the title of the show is. We're here to celebrate the joy of wrestling, something in our wrestling fandom that made us happy, as a fan, whether it be a show, an angle, a moment, or in this case what we're going to talk about. And we did a similar show. I mean, it wasn't about the F4W convention, but it was about how online communities can bring people together. When I did it with Jeremy Finestone, I believe it was my second show, but this one will be a little different. But I gotta admit, when Garrett told me that you had saw and you wanted to be on, and I was like, oh, that's cool, great. I'll ask him. I'll add him to my list, and I got a list, and I put you near the top of it. And but to be honest, like I didn't remember you,
hmm
and because it's been a while. Like
Yeah,
my 10, at least 10 years, maybe more.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I don't take it. Yeah, I don't take it personal. I kind of,
yeah,
I don't know. As the years went on, I kind of stepped away from that
yeah,
community.
yeah.
So,
Well, and you were more involved in it before I kind of started getting in. So our paths kind of just briefly intersected. You were kind of on
right,
your way out, and I was on my way in.
right. So our stories are gonna kind of, they're probably gonna overlap as well as
Yeah.
we're reminiscing and talking about these memories. But yeah, no. When I heard about this show, I it resonated with me. I'm a therapist, so I'm always looking to reframing like thought processes or whatnot. And it's like when I saw this the topic, I was like, the joy of wrestling, especially now where in the era that we live in, where we have that tribalism and just it seems like nobody knows how to just have fun with wrestling anymore. Especially in the time that we're in, which I think when we reflect back we're actually gonna, those of us that are not enjoying wrestling right now are gonna be like, God damn, that was such a great era, and they're gonna start getting nostalgic. So when I heard of the joy of wrestling, I'm like, yeah, that's a perfect topic. Let's just kind of bring forth a lot of these memories that really remind us what wrestling is for all of us, which is escapism and also just um, immersing yourself in what professional wrestling is.
Yeah, and you like, and when you talk about that, it's like we forget. Like at one point, we were all just fans, and
hmm
and when the internet started, it was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like there's we can get like wrestling news, and we can hear about things before we're supposed to hear about them, and we can interact, and you found this cool community in like I'm guessing you joined near the beginning, like 2005.
Yeah, yeah, I was right there in the very beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I wasn't like, so I tell people this because now like I work for the website. I have like not nobody, but I have something of a name, and I've got friends in the business and stuff. But in 2005, like I didn't even know the wrestling. Well, I probably knew it existed, but I didn't like I wasn't involved at all. I joined the site after that Benoit stuff. So a couple years later, but even then it wasn't till a couple years after that that I like even knew about the board. Like I
hmm
literally signed up just to read the newsletter. I didn't even know about the podcasts. So I think it
Right.
was like 2009 maybe when I started listening to the podcasts, and then I heard about this F4W convention. Now, so the first one I went to was, I believe it's 2010, when it was
Okay.
Rampage and Rashad, and you were at that one, right?
Yes, that's where we met,
That's
and
where we met.
and
Yeah. And
yes, so that's a long time ago.
that was not your first.
No, but I wasn't too far behind you. I started going to 2000, starting in 2009 because the conventions themselves. It's a funny story, and I'll recap here very quickly. Started because Ed Laredo
Yep.
had supposedly he had a couple of friends that we never saw again, by the way. So, and I guess they flaked on him, and he invited Brian and Vinny to go to Vegas and hang out with him for the weekend. That was in 2007, and that was kind of like where this all started. And then the next year they made it a thing, and then I went to the following year, which was 2009.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, yeah, that was kind of where it started. But within all that was, again, this community that was building because of the F4W board, and it brought the thing that made that community special at that time. First of all, it was a different time, as we know, right? It's different than it is today. And so there was a lot of characters on that board, like almost like all these people that, and there still is, I guess. I haven't been there in years, um,
It's not
but
the
it
same.
but it was interesting because once I remember being in Vegas in the around 2010 2011, and I was, there was a lot of alcohol, and we're having a good time. So I remember just looking around the room, and I remember thinking, these people are real. Like these human beings that I've been interacting with for the last couple of years are real people, and wrestling has kind of united all of us. Not only the F4W board and Brian and Dave, and to a certain extent Vinny, but also just the wrestling business. And I remember being in such gratitude at that time because it was just surreal to me. Because again, at this point too, because of what the Wrestling Observer is, which is a very much a newsletter that's from the scope of like real journalism, it does tailor towards older people, right? So at this point in my life, I'm like in my late 20s, going into my early 30s. So I'm not what you would call like a young Mark.
Mhm.
Um, so I was just in awe of just all these people that are around my age, that are married, have careers, very successful people that are here, and it really killed a lot of the stigma and stereotypes that we have about wrestling fans too. So I
Mhm.
don't know, it was just, I remember that time as being a very special time in my fandom.
So, okay, so yeah, so you started 2009. So yeah, it was only a year before me. Now I don't know what year this picture was taken. I think it was either 2011 or 2012. I'm going to put it up here, and I'm wondering if you were in this picture anywhere. Do you remember this?
Uh, yes, and I think I was there the year after.
Okay. But so this year, and this is why I put this picture up specifically. You can see a bunch of the people in the picture are wearing shirts for Rami. And
Right.
Rami was a real person who
Yes.
had an online persona. Now, Rami predates my involvement with the board, but I certainly heard about Rami. And what happened was Rami unfortunately passed away, and his sister found out about this community that Rami was a part of, and she wanted to come to the convention and meet the people. So what happened was the people on the board got together and paid for her to come to Vegas and spend time with it, go do all the convention stuff. And she got to meet everyone and know everyone. And to this day, I'm still friends with her on Facebook. I still interact with her, and I'm sure she does with a bunch of other people. And I never even knew Rami, but
Right.
she
Right.
understood that, like he was a part of this community, and now she's a part of this community. And so everybody else that was there and that got to meet her, and it's the only year she ever came, I believe. But I know she was really touched. And this is kind of what you're talking about. Like it's the kind of
Mhm.
thing, like I'm not even sure could happen anymore. Like
I
in
don't
it,
think so. For a lot of
yeah,
reasons.
yeah, and
I,
especially in this community, like we didn't like back then. I mean, there was only one wrestling company really, but I mean, everyone, not a lot of the people even there even liked WWE at the time. Like, they watched Ring of Honor, they watched New Japan, they watched All Japan, like, but it wasn't about that. It was just about wrestling fans hanging out, and
well,
enjoying each other's
what it was,
company.
is that to me, the nucleus of all this was Brian and Vinny, even
Right.
before
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think what happened is that Brian and Vinny, with their podcast, again, this is 2005, 2006, when nobody's doing this. Now there's a
No,
thousand of them. Now that
I've got like
your friend,
three.
yeah, now your friend next door style podcast,
Yeah.
which is what a lot of people love. That's what I'm a fan of. I don't like. I'm not and I've talked to Double G about this. I don't like the analytical podcasts. The ones that go and they're very mechanical and going over like a UFC card or a wrestling card. I like the shooting the shit kind of podcast, and
Yeah.
that's what Brian and Vinny gave us very early on. It was
And
just two
that's
guys that
that's
were
kind of
sitting.
what this is trying to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, um, so to me, it was like, and to a lot of people, they kind of became our friends, right, through the
Yeah.
podcast. So it was, there was very little censorship. It was not filtered, which became a problem later on, by the way, because there was
Yeah.
a lot of topics on the board that are not there anymore
Yep.
for that reason. But again, it was a different time, different era, and so that was, I think, that really helped because it transcended wrestling to the point of just guys wanting to hang out, you know. And they early on. I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I stopped going is because remember it used to be in May,
Yeah.
right? It used to be
And it is
connected to a year.
again now, but for years it wasn't.
Right. And so in May, I mean, well, the reason that they moved that was because it was too close to WrestleMania, and
Yeah.
people start the F4W convention also kind of happened during WrestleMania as well. So people were like, "Hey, this is affecting my wallet a little bit. I can't do both." So they moved it to July 4th weekend, and like at that point, now it's competing against the holiday. I got things going on, and so that's why I stopped going. But yeah, so I think it was a combination of its Vegas. Vegas also helped a lot. The
Yeah.
location helped, UFC helped, and just the fact that it was just a bunch of guys that planned their vacation around just hanging around with a bunch of friends, not wrestling fans, but friends, right? And so all these things working together was why we got what we got.
So I don't know how much of this you know, but the first year that I went by myself, and I didn't know anyone. I mean, I had just started listening to the podcasts. I hadn't met Brian or Dave. So really the reason I went, probably number one, I wanted to see that fight. Number two, I
Right.
wanted to meet Brian and Dave. And that was basically it. Like, and I think Todd Martin was another person I wanted to meet at the time. And everyone else there, I just kind of, I didn't know, and I'm not a very outgoing person by nature. So I kind of sat there and I introduced myself to Brian and Dave. I sat next to Todd because I conversed with him via emails, and we talked about hockey and a little bit about wrestling, and that was it. And then I went off and did my own thing. I was by myself. There was a suite party, I believe, the
Yeah.
first night. It was on a Friday, and I heard what hotel it was at. So I go to the hotel and I go to the front desk and I say, "I'm here for the F4W convention suite party." And they look at me like I'm nuts. Like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about? And I'm looking on boards. I'm looking like, where can I see this or whatever? And I'm like, I had no idea what this was. Like, I didn't know. Like, is there gonna be like 300 people there? Is there gonna be, like, is there gonna be 1,000 people there?
Right.
Well, it was like 15. And it was people in a room, and it was someone had rented a room, and it wasn't
Which
for a
if you're
party.
which if you're shy, it makes it worse sometimes. That it's
Well,
not a
yeah,
thousand.
but the problem is I didn't know, like, I didn't know where to go. Like, I knew it was at this hotel. So somehow I met somebody in the lobby that had recognized me from the steakhouse. And they knew the game. Like, whoever it was had been there
Hmm.
before. I don't think it was you. I'm almost positive I ended up meeting you, like we probably met at the steakhouse, but or
Right.
even at the party. But at the next night after UFC, they had a get together at Dick's Last Resort. So I go to Dick's Last Resort and I'm looking around and I don't see anybody that I recognize. But again, I don't really know anybody. So
Hmm.
I'm walking around the Excalibur, and I'm almost positive that you were there with somebody and you came up and talked to me because I was wearing a Winnipeg Jets jersey, and that's how people recognized me back then. And that's
Yeah,
like the first few years I went, I always wore a Winnipeg Jets jersey everywhere I went because I
I
thought
remember that.
people are going to remember me. So I think I ran into you, and you were like, "Oh, I think maybe they were here and they're gone, or whatever. I'm not sure." We were trying to find them too. It
You
turns
know
out they
what? I
were on.
remember that. It was me.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
golly, that was.
yeah.
Yeah,
They were on the patio, but we
that's
didn't
right.
know. We didn't know, or I didn't know. So I ended up leaving. I walked to the Rio, which is like, I don't know, an hour. It looked like it was close because I could see it, but it was a
That's
long
Vegas
way
for
away.
you.
Yeah. And so I walked to the Rio. I played poker all night. I lost all my money. So the next day I wake up, I got no money. I barely got enough money to buy breakfast. So I buy breakfast. I eat my breakfast. I go back to my room. I watch TV all day. I got nothing. I got no money. This is I didn't even have an iPhone. I didn't have any way to communicate with anybody. So I had
Wow.
like literally was by myself. So I'm like, okay, I'm never doing this again. Like I'm never going back to this convention.
Yeah.
The fight was great. It was cool to meet Brian and Dave. I don't need to do this again. And what happened was after the thing was over, I started getting DMs from people on Facebook. Hey, it was nice to meet you. I hope you come back next year, blah, blah, all this stuff. And I'm like, really? Like you guys remember me? And
Hmm.
like and literally and I kind of shared with a few people I was kind of lonely and stuff. And oh no, you just gotta branch out a bit. You gotta get to know people. Next time you're here, I'm Doc, look for me. Oh, I'm Ryan, look for me, like Freeway, and Sideswipe and all
Oh
this,
man,
right?
you're bringing memories with those names.
Yeah. So by the next year, so what I did was I brought my son with me the next year. And my son was 20, so he couldn't go into casinos and stuff, but he hung around with me and he went to the sweet party and we did a bunch of stuff. And I got to know people. And then by the second year, it was like, oh, it's like almost like I knew everybody. And then like ever
Well,
since, I've gone every year, other than COVID. And
Well, one of the beautiful things about that era is that, like you said, the community was very welcoming, and I
mhm.
think the reason why it was very welcoming is because there was a lot of people that were just like you know, very shy, very introverted. That's what bonded people to that community in the first place. So I commend you for going past your fear and saying, you know what, I'm not gonna let this stop me. I'm gonna go the following year and just pushing through, because I think that's a good not only a lesson for the convention, but just a life lesson.
Oh yeah.
And so I think, yeah, I think it was that welcoming nature is also something that a lot of us enjoyed being around. There was no judgment, right? Because
Nope.
as you know, wrestling has a negative stigma to the mainstream, and there was a bunch of wrestling fans, Um, so yeah, it was an interesting time for sure. And again, like you said, for many different reasons, not just because of the nihilistic nature and the way we are in the wrestling business now, but just social media has also evolved, and everybody kind of sprouted out,
Yeah.
and so that I think that's a time that's never going to be duplicated.
No, and I mean, even now, I think the convention it's not quite the same. But I do like what I try to do, and I don't always do this, and I definitely didn't do it this year, and I feel a little bit guilty for it. But the last couple of years I've tried, I always make a point, especially at the sweet party, because now the sweet party it's pretty big. Like we get probably like well, this year it wasn't as big, but last year and the year before, the first COVID year, we had like 70 people, and everybody got
Well,
COVID.
yeah, well, Dave's the draw, so Dave's the big
Dave,
draw.
yeah, and he wasn't there this year. So yeah, that's part
Yeah.
of it. I mean, it's also just bigger and people there. But if I see someone I don't know, I make a point of going to them because I assume if I don't know them, they probably don't know anybody. So I'll go up to them.
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Paul. I'll look. Hey, Garrett, what's your name? Oh, Joe. Hey, Joe. This is Garrett. Joe, this is Ryan. Hey, Joe, this is Rodney. And like I'll try to introduce them and get them to feel like part of it because I know what it feels like to walk into that room and you're like, oh my god, like who are
Yeah.
all these people?
Yes.
And and so it's hard to kind of remember that, but I try. This year I was just on the sweet party night. I was just not quite myself. But I'm also the weird thing now is like when the thing first happens, usually the first get together is like the steakhouse. And I've had a couple times now, including this year, when I've actually had people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, you're Paul Fontaine, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, my name's
Huh.
Eddie." And it's like, "Oh, hey Eddie, nice to meet you." And it's, "Oh, I love your
Yeah.
stuff." And it's like, "Oh my god, like I'm like I'm not Brian and Vinny, but I'm Paul Fontaine." And
Yeah.
it kind of makes me, I don't know, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, well, what it does is that it also validates a lot of your work that you've put into the
I guess,
website,
yeah,
and
but
just being a part of being an ambassador of that community, right?
well, and
And
that's what
so,
I try. I for me personally, I'm more proud of that aspect of it. Like
hmm,
of trying to be an ambassador and welcoming people. And I mean, one of my very best friends now that I met 2 years ago was exactly like that. He just showed up somewhere and we just kind of bonded. And now like we talk every day almost and we roomed together this year at the convention and he's a great friend and he's younger than my son, like,
yeah,
but we're still great friends. Like it's weird,
hmm,
but
right, right,
and then there's someone like you that I met like 15 years ago or whatever it was 14, 13 years ago,
Yes.
and it's like we can just, as you're talking, like I totally remember you now, like at the first, because I be honest, I didn't. You're doing a podcast with Garrett, right? On
We're
and
going over the newsletters, the old
and
newsletters.
I haven't been listening, so
No, that's
that's
okay.
that's on me. That's on me. I
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to a lot
People
of
are busy,
podcasts.
man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so it's
but yeah, but yeah. So now I'm glad that we kind of reconnected. Um,
um I was gonna say, one of the memories that I have from you that I'll never forget is that one of the first things that we started talking about. And again, I was one of those guys that when I would go to Vegas, I would go to Vegas to just get hammered. Not as much as Charlie. Remember Charlie? Like
oh
I
yeah,
don't th- I don't think nobody ever saw that guy like sober ever. But I digress. So one of the conversations I remember vividly is that bonded us is that you were telling me how you would always get the crappy pay-per-views in your hometown, and you went on this whole like soliloquy on like the in your house pay-per-view. Who was the main event on that one back in '95, right?
yeah,
Um,
it's 94, 95. I don't even remember. It was it was I think it was Diesel
Diesel and the Bulldog,
and the Bulldog. Yeah, because it set up the Diesel Bret Hart match at Survivor Series.
right? And I remember
Yeah.
you were like we never get good pay-per-views, and that's the only pay-per-view we've gotten, and so I'll never forget that, and that's why from that point in time. I always remembered where you were from, and it was something like,
The only pay-per-view, like that was the first pay-per-view I ever saw live. The next one wasn't until 2016, WrestleMania. We drove to WrestleMania, me and two of my kids. And so it was 94 to 2016 I went without seeing a pay-per-view live.
wow. So even when you were in the thick of it with the fandom, you never went to a pay-per-view live.
Not a wrestling one, no. Just
Yeah.
the UFCs.
Hmm.
I'd go to the UFC every year. And
Yeah.
then that was the first Mania I went to. So it was kind of cool because I got to see a lot of the same people again. But then I didn't go
Yeah.
to another one until I went to the Double or Nothings for AEW, but I went to Mania in 2022. Dallas, it's like I tell people, oh, it's just a easy drive. It's 20 hours, but it's straight south.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
it's and there's a casino halfway through. So I can stop at the casino, gamble, and then get on the road and drive. And so yeah, we've gone twice. We're planning on going next year to Vegas, just because uh, I can get, my daughter can get tickets with Becky Lynch, and
Hmm.
so that'll be cool. I don't know if you know about that. That's another story for another day. But yeah, it's cool. All right, so we're almost out of time. Before the end of every show, I like to, because we had some great memories here and everything. We talked about community and that, but I'm
Hmm.
wondering, I don't know how much you still watch of wrestling,
I
but
watch. I watch.
okay. So
Yeah.
I want you to try to think of something that's recently that you've seen that has made you happy as a fan.
WrestleMania weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. WrestleMania 40 weekend. I thought both of those nights were amazing. I thought, you know, we know why they're saying this whole Triple H era is for political reasons, whatever, we get it. But it's still so refreshing. It's refreshing to see a change, regardless of why it is, you know. And so yeah, WrestleMania 40 weekend was amazing. I had some friends over. We did it old school. We hadn't done the whole pay-per-view party in years,
Oh,
so
nice.
just bringing people back to my apartment and buying food and just enjoying 2 nights of great wrestling was something that I really got a kick out of. And it was 2 nights that I think delivered. So
You know what I remember as you were talking and you mentioned the Levesque era and everything. I got really happy in night two, and I know a lot of people didn't, and I don't care. I'm not a lot of people. This is me. When
yeah,
when Stephanie came out at the beginning to kick things off, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. I mean, she was at the Hall of Fame, but I was really happy to see her. It brought me back to when I was a kid or younger. Anyways, I wasn't a kid, but I kind of had a crush on her. And and so to see her, and now she's older, and we're similar age, and it was just cool to see her back, and she seemed happy and she seemed content. And yeah, there's some stuff they got to deal with, and that's that. I'm just talking about as a fan. I don't know the person. I've never met Stephanie
yeah,
McMahon. I've heard good things, I've heard bad things. I'm just talking about the character. I like to see Stephanie, pretty Stephanie out there. That made me happy. But for me, I will go actually to we just had the rest of the convention this year. It was last weekend.
Hmm.
You and I were supposed to record last week, but when we booked it, you forgot it was Memorial Day and you want to spend time with your family, and that's cool. And it
Yeah.
actually worked out good for me, anyways, because I rolled in at about 8:30, got home at 9. We were going to record at 10 my time, so literally an hour after I got home, we were going to record. I'm cool, I'll do it, but I
I
was
think we're
glad
on
to
the
have.
same time because I'm in California, so I
I'm
think.
central. I'm central.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
2 hours ahead. It's 10:30 here right now.
Okay.
So yeah, so from that convention though, I will say that I was really happy um to see the Collision show. We went to Collision the night before Double or Nothing, and just being there, we got great seats. And I was just there as a fan. I wasn't like, I mean, I was at Double or Nothing as a fan too. I wasn't covering it in any capacity or anything like that. But I mean, Double or Nothing was long. It was great matches and they're fun. But 2 hour show, it was so much fun. I was chanting. I was arguing with an 8-year-old girl about because she was saying Jay Lethal sucked, and I was no, he doesn't. And and Jeff Jarrett, I love Jeff Jarrett. She did not love Jeff Jarrett, and she was chanting very nasty words at Mercedes Monet. And I was like, whoa, and I kind of feel that way
It's-
too, but I wouldn't say it.
yeah.
So I just had so much fun at that show, and just seeing those little kids and how much fun they were having. And even like Mariah May was wrestling, and she heard these kids in the section we were in, and she went and hugged them after the match because she knew how much fun they were having and how much they loved
Right.
watching her. So that just warmed my heart seeing that. And then we had a nice meal with friends after too, so that was cool. But yeah, so that was what
Awesome, man.
made me happy recently. So
Awesome.
yeah, so hopefully, one year, maybe someday you'll show up at a convention again. But even
Well,
if you,
well, actually, no. I was gonna say actually, I skipped this year's. Just again, there was so much going on. Actually, I think I was on the road. But I've been there the last couple of years. Actually, I was there last year and the year before. But I'm just kind of like in my own little. Actually, last year I was out there in the balcony the entire time with Logan, Logan from the
really.
future. Yes.
So did we interact at all last year? I
I
don't
think we
remember.
said a quick hi. I think we said
Oh,
a quick
okay,
hi.
okay. Oh wow,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I had no
yeah. Like I
idea.
said, man, when I
Now
go
I
to
feel
Vegas,
like
I
an
go.
idiot.
No, no, no. It's my fault. It's my
Okay,
fault because when I go to Vegas, again, I'm there. I don't really partake. I don't really drink. I don't.
yeah,
But when I'm there, that's my weekends to do that stuff. So I'm not exactly.
I'm the exact same. Were you there the year everyone got COVID? So you said you were there 2 years
No.
ago.
Oh yeah, it was. I was. Yes, but I
Okay,
didn't get COVID. Yeah.
okay. I think I was patient zero. I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
I
both
think
of
I
us.
got it on the plane, and then I passed it on to everyone throughout the weekend because I was the first one to get it and I was the first one to recover. And Brian
Oh,
had
okay.
it like a week after me, and we hung out a lot, me and Brian. So, yeah, it was.
But before we go, I do have some very quick memories. I remember that year where they made Dave hold the Goldie Wilson sign. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he just so didn't want to do it.
I think
And
that was my
and
second year. Yeah,
okay, and then there was the whole thing with the whole Teddy Long fiasco. That kid that went there and so much drama with El Laredo and all that stuff. And just
oh, and the girl.
and the girl, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We were there when Peach Machine met I guess his ex-wife or his wife
yeah. His
or,
ex-wife. His ex-wife.
but we
Oh
were there
yeah.
and
Oh, the wedding and the reception.
no, no, I was there when they met in the
Okay,
dance
okay,
floor. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So,
and
but the
and
next year when they had the reception, you weren't there that year.
no, I wasn't there. I skipped that year.
Okay, okay,
The last year I went was 2014, so I was there
okay.
2009 to around 2012 and then 2014.
And then not
And
again
then I
till
started going
2020.
back the last couple of years.
Peach
But
I ended up becoming really good friends with Peach, years later. But at that
yeah,
time, I
yeah,
didn't
good.
know him. At that time, I didn't know him. So
Good, good. And so yeah, so I have all these great memories, and again, even bringing people together when wedlock, these things. So it's just I don't know. I think I just want to leave with this message. Like I think now kids need to stop being so cynical when it comes to wrestling. You know, it seems like we live in an era where it's all or nothing. I feel like both companies, there's room for criticism for both companies. You can't. It's not all about one's doing it right and one's doing it wrong. It's a roller coaster. Both are gonna struggle, both are gonna succeed, and it's our job to just enjoy what they're putting out because having two major league companies is not always guaranteed. And so I think right now we just, as fans, we should enjoy how different they are. And yeah, we have the right to voice our opinions. We have the right to criticize both companies because I do that all the time. But I think we shouldn't pedestal because when you pedestal, now you're working against your ego, and so now you have to defend that because it's a part of who you are, and that's where it gets a little complicated. So I think as fans, we have to have an open mind and understand that both of these companies, it's a constant trial and error. It's a business. Every business works on trial and error. So they're both gonna have their highs and lows. And to me, it's like just enjoy it, man. Because when
Absolutely.
else are we gonna get two major league pay-per-views in one weekend like we just got? You know?
Well, probably in
Um,
like a month, but I
well,
know what
now
you mean. Yeah, I know
I
what you
mean,
mean. I know what you mean.
years down the road, we're gonna be like, God, I miss when I had a Saturday
Yes.
and a Sunday with some cool wrestling,
Yeah.
and,
And you
and
know what?
different.
And if you don't like one, you can watch the other one.
You can
You
watch
know,
the
like
other one. Yeah,
exactly. And if you don't like either one, go watch New Japan. Like there's so much
yeah.
for everyone. So yeah, you're totally right. And I'm glad you ended with that message. This has been so much fun. I'll have to get you back at some point. We'll talk about some actual wrestling shows, that made you fun. And you brought up WrestleMania 7. That would be cool. We could
I
talk
love that
about
show. But yeah, we'll talk
yeah,
about it another day.
yeah. But it was great to catch up with you again, Draven. And everyone, I'll be back next week. I don't have a guest lined up, but I'll be here. Might be taking 2 weeks off. 2 weeks from now, my daughter Emily is having surgery, so please keep her and our family in your thoughts and prayers. It's major
Yeah, hopefully it
surgery.
all works out.
It
Yeah,
should. But
good, good.
for Draven, I've been Paul Fontaine, aka Des Walker, Grandpa Des, as you knew me back then, and how people
Yeah.
still call me Des. But yeah, this has been the joy of wrestling.